And then she's with the Women's Justice Institute and Recollection Project as a formerly impacted person.
Where I believe Kathy has been able to join us. Kathy has,
Yes.
oh, perfect. Kathy is an impacted person with a lot of both family and loved ones who have come home, and we'll kind of be giving some of her experience in terms of, and again, these biographies will be up during each person's presentation, so just a quick overview. But we'll be giving some of the lived experience in terms of helping people come home and how she has dealt with that as an individual and also how she's helped other people do that.
Maurice is one of our own tried and true previous Future Leaders Apprenticeship Program graduate, formerly system impacted, currently an outreach coordinator at Uptown People Law Center. It's really cool to have him here with us to join us in the loved ones training.
We'll have Michael coming around 7. He currently works at the Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation, doing housing work. He's a formerly impacted, or he is an impacted person. And again, we'll be talking about his experience as well.
And then Lee and Manpreet from the Education Justice Project will be joining us a little bit later, and they'll actually have a little reentry guide to share with us then too.
Great. I know we did that pretty quick, so feel free if there's any questions. We can, again, we'll have a little bit of time during each presentation to kind of talk more about background and things like that. But let me go back and we'll start with Kasia.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just going to explain my role a little bit. So prior to working in private practice, I was a clinical social worker at Northwestern's Bloom Legal Clinic, where I mainly worked with youth in the juvenile justice system, with the juvenile life without parole population, and with the wrongfully convicted population. So my main role was focused on reentry. And so I was doing that work for about almost 8 years. And in just the last year and a half, I transitioned to private practice and working with also adolescents and adults and focusing on trauma work. So I feel like I could talk a lot, and I'm going to try to minimize and keep it focused, and feel free to keep me on track or if I'm elaborating too much on certain topics. But I think one of the main things that I wanted to talk about is in my role, and I think what's relevant here today is we would have, for our clients especially, we would have meetings with family members and support people and loved ones prior to someone coming home. And I think that was really important, just like what we're doing here today. I think whether it's with an advocate or a pastor or with whoever, just to have a conversation about it and all the feelings that go into it, because not only is it emotional for the loved ones, but it will also be a lot for the loved one who is coming home. So I'd like to talk about just some basics first. So what do we think about when we think about reentry, right? And so when I think about successful reentry planning, we always thought about it in terms of a few buckets. So housing, social support, therapeutic support, educational, vocational, and medical. And then on top of those buckets, there's also the practical needs, right? So it's like food, clothing, IDs, other important documents, transportation, health insurance, medical, dental care, any other type of public assistance. All those things sort of go into when we think about what is necessary and what is our loved one going to need upon re-entering or coming home back into the community. I'm not going to go into sort of each bucket, but I am going to focus on specific, maybe complexities of reentry planning. And so I think when we think about coming home, what our loved one is going to go through, just to give us a little bit of a basic understanding here, there's going to be sort of the complexity of loss and growth, right? So my incarceration has led me to several losses, right? Including the time, loss of myself, loss of loved ones, relationships, various life and developmental stages. And then growth, also looking at growth in terms of my appreciation of life, my relationships with others, new possibilities in life, what personal strengths and spiritual changes have I grown in, and growth also defined as the worldview that I now currently have, and the trauma that I experienced that has basically shattered it. When we also think about loss and growth as like a complexity of coming home, it's that false perception also of growth that may impact our loved one. And sometimes if there's an unhelpful processing of the trauma that will also add an additional layer. If we have this expectation that we need to recover or grow too quickly, or we have all these goals for ourselves. So when working with clients at the Bloom Legal Clinic, it was always I felt like my main role was to like slow down, like to help the client slow down, right? Because I feel like it's as soon as I come home, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I think it's really important to, as loved ones, to emphasize and to stress that it's okay to have this period of adjustment where you're just maybe figuring out the neighborhood that you're living in again, figuring out maybe what foods you like to eat again, figuring out stores, right? And even going to stores and or restaurants, how overwhelming an experience like that may be. And thinking about and I'm going to just focus here even on that some more, going as deep as I'm coming home and my family wants to take me to a restaurant to eat, and maybe there's going to be several people around, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. I think I'm going to be okay, but I may not feel okay once I'm actually there. And so even when we think about going out to eat, right, looking at a menu, that could be completely overwhelming. And so thinking about how can we sort of take away some of that anxiety around choices and the having too much freedom at once, and thinking about like, oh, my favorite food is like, I really like to eat hamburgers and steak here. Maybe you'd like to try one of those, right? Instead of, hey, pick out whatever you want. Different things. So just throwing some thoughts and ideas out there in terms of when we think of loss and growth, and the expectations that maybe we set and the expectations that maybe our loved ones have as well. The next thing that I really want to focus on is trauma in terms of like body and mind. Our loved one who is coming home is going through an incredible cascade, basically, of events and traumas that have happened during incarceration, pre-incarceration, and whether it happened already at their arrest, whether it was a wrongful arrest, whether it was wrongful detention or incarceration, whether you were found guilty, right? All those things, even leading up to incarceration, come with trauma. And so our loved one has had to adapt, and basically their survival brain has had to kick in, because we have to push the pain away of all that loss that we're experiencing and all the trauma that we're experiencing. And that pain can basically be reactivated. So small things can feel dangerous, because in prison, we're in a constant state of arousal, right? So that fight, flight, freeze response. And our brain and body have basically learned to be in this constant hyperarousal state, or this defensive posture. So it works well in prison, but then when we come home, that doesn't function well, whether it's with our parents or romantic relationships or out in the community at work, right? So an example here could be with employers or something like that. Something could all of a sudden remind me or trigger me in my place of employment, maybe even 6 months to a year down after my release. and I can't make sense of what's going on. So then we start to feel numb, and feel like maybe we're trying to dissociate, or we figure out ways to numb those feelings, right? So this is where maybe different types of addictions begin developing. And so I just wanted to talk about trauma here a little bit, and just that chronic exposure to violence, neglect, torture, pain, and that imprint that it's leaving on the entire person when they are finally coming home. And also all the trauma that maybe they left behind, right, in certain situations. So I think that's also really important to consider. So for loved ones, I think what's really important to pay attention to is sleeping. How is our loved one sleeping when they're coming home? Are there nightmares? How is our physical body managing this? Are there chronic health problems? The stigma and the labels that come along also, right? I've been labeled a prisoner, a murderer, a felon, whatever that is. And how do we deal with those labels and figure out who we are and what our sense of identity basically is, and rebuilding that sense of identity. And how do we move on from those labels? I think also when we think about prison, we have to think about the daily routine that comes with that, right? So even going back to the sleep part, when we come home, what does our room and what does our environment look like? And sometimes I think family members don't understand why individuals may do certain things, but that's what, maybe I've been doing that for 20, 30 years. And so I'm going to keep doing it, and it's going to take me time. And so I think the key here is patience and talking and communication, right? Trying to understand and not trying to fix or change somebody from the get-go, because I think that's when frustration starts to arise. And also because we don't understand and we're not talking to each other. Because the person coming home may not even know that they're doing certain things or having certain behaviors. And then the loved ones also don't want to notice or don't want to say anything or don't want to bring anything up. And I think with any relationship, right, the key is communication. But so the struggle to sort of paying attention to the struggle of maintaining like daily ordinary tasks, whether we are relying on substances to sort of to cope and to numb certain emotions. When we think about youth or the juvenile life without parole population, or individuals who went in at a sort of in adolescence, we also have to think about all those milestones that they missed out on, right? And so is my son, is my daughter all of a sudden engaging in risky behaviors? Maybe, because if they were 16 or 17 when they went in, and now they're in their 40s or 50s when they come home, they missed out on all of that. And so they're also, whether consciously or unconsciously, they are sort of just making up for that. And so it is understanding that trauma and understanding the development of all of this, and the impact that it has on the person and the sense of self, and that loss and all of the loss that the loved one has experienced. I am going to talk about, I'm trying to think what is, so I think relationships also is, in terms of relationships with a family member, I think it's important to prepare. Also, I think it's important to talk about expectations, right? Maybe our family member who's coming home has certain goals and expectations for themselves. So I think talking about that and whether that also fits in line with, let's say your loved one is coming home with you and they have certain things that they want to be doing. Well, I think it's really important from the get-go to be on the same page about everything, but to also be flexible, and to just take it day by day. Boundaries, it's okay to say no. This is for family members. I would say it's really important to, from day one, to show healthy boundaries, and it is okay to say no. It is, and that is how we are teaching basically independence and also empowering our loved one who has come home, so that they can also, so that that power balance that they have struggled with and experienced in prison equals out, right? We are developing trust. Also thinking about romantic relationships when we think about boundaries, right? So whenever I had clients who were coming home with romantic partners waiting for them out in the community already, I always talk to them about, one, I hardly ever was in line of someone coming home to a romantic partner, because I think all of those boundaries get blurred. I don't think the relationship is equal when one is incarcerated, and right. And so then I come home and both of us have the freedom to make decisions and choices, and we see conflict arise a lot of the time because the partner is not used to the person who was incarcerated all of a sudden having these freedom and having choices, and the relationship was basically on their terms for the majority of the time, right? And so these are just sort of small scenarios that I'm bringing up, but just things to be mindful of. Let's see, I'm starting to see some, is there questions, just so I know, like,
Yeah.
I've been talking for a little bit, and so I want to make sure I'm also keeping on track with what folks want me to answer.
I saw a question that is there a time frame that you think is normal for this transition?
A time frame that I think is normal for the like reentry transition.
Mm-hmm. I think, or like, I guess I don't know if there's more specific version of that question, but
Yeah, so I think that I think it's unique to every individual, and I think that is how we should go, like the open mind, like go into it with an open mind basically, and flexibility, right? I think I have seen clients who from day one things are going great, but we're also not focusing on the emotional and the psychological piece, the internal stuff that's going on. And then I sort of seen them, go into a crisis state basically at 6 months or 1 year, or maybe sometimes even 2 years out, because we're ignoring all the other things that are going on because it's easier that way, right? But I think if I were to, as a loved one, I would sort of be aware and mindful of different things that are going on with the individual coming home, because even finding professionals who are available prior to release so that the person is set up for success sort of from the beginning, whether it's a mentor, someone who's sort of went through what they went through already, right? Maybe a community organization, maybe it is a therapist or a mental health person who has I would say it's key that this person either has experience in trauma or has an understanding of incarceration or wrongful incarceration or things like that, because there tends to be sometimes a disconnect, is what I've heard from clients who just sort of went in to see someone and then they sort of give up on therapy pretty quickly. So that's how I'm going to answer that.
thank you so much, Kasia. I think I want to turn it over to Diana now. Diana, can you share a little bit more about your experience and like what you've been doing?
Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Winchester, and I'm a formerly incarcerated woman. I served 20 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. So Cassia basically like told everything. Like I was really learning from you about my experience and like what I have experienced coming home. Um, the one thing I would say first and foremost is for a family member uh, is to forgive. Um, Sometimes a person may have done something to put themselves in the system, but then maybe they're innocent. But to forgive one, you know, and then compassion and empathy is what I would say that an individual loved one needs to have for that person, and understanding that they're going to be different when they come home. They have experienced something that caused them to get in there, whether they're innocent or guilty, and they go through things within the system that the outside world who's never been incarcerated will not be able to relate to because they don't know that experience. So in the beginning it says, when we come home, you hand us a cell phone. That was the first thing that I was given, is a cell phone. And then it's like, that's the ruler of the world, that's the attention getter. But what we desire is a conversation, understanding, to be heard, to be known, to be seen for who we are and not who we were when we went in there. And just some of those like judgments and um the way that you're perceived and things like that, or the watch for you to do something wrong and things like that, and to be trusted. um I think that counseling, family counseling, is definitely something that's needed when you're ready to. Like for me personally, I am in counseling, and my family is gradually going to be coming into counseling with me. So because there's a lot of things that need to be talked about. I was gone for 20 years. My children, I had my youngest son while I was incarcerated. My oldest son, he was 5 months when I got incarcerated. When I came home, 9 months after I come home, my oldest son was killed, and now it's just me and my youngest son. And so it's just a lot of loss, like she said, a lot of loss when you've been incarcerated. First your freedom, then your loved ones pass away, and then come home and a lot of people pass away. So it's a lot of grief that has gone on, and understanding that process, because like when you're free, you get to go to the ceremony and go through all the ritualistic things that happen as far as burial is concerned. But when you're incarcerated, you get an obituary and you have to sit there and reminisce about times and grieve the way that you choose to or can within the walls. And so that is a process in itself. And just like Kaisha was saying, like, it's a lot when you're incarcerated. I'm almost like at a loss for words because she said everything. But one particular thing is like how you live inside the institution versus how you live out here. I had one incident where I went to the grocery store and I had just got my link card and stuff like that. And I didn't know how to swipe it. It was like, this was something new to me. I didn't know how to use this machine. That's not something we do. Instead, we go and get our commissary and get our food and stuff like that. And so basically, like, I was used to going to the store with my commissary bag, bringing it back, putting it on my bed. When I went to the grocery store outside in the world, I took my groceries to my room and laid it on top of my bed when I had a whole kitchen there to put things in the cabinet and put things in the refrigerator on top of the refrigerator, things like that. But I took it to my room because in my mind, I still was incarcerated, you know? Oh my goodness, it's so much that goes on. And then associations, like Julie was saying that Eric is still 17 sometimes. Like I was 19 when I got locked up, or yeah, I was 19, and I still am emotionally that girl sometimes in my choices and my habits and certain things. But today I can say, due to a life altering circumstances that happened last year, that I am allowing myself to grow up now. Like, okay, you can't stay that young girl the rest of your life. Like, it's time to grow up. So today I am taking a step back, saying, okay, I'm gonna let you grow. Um, Goodness, yeah. But I would say the trauma, the grief, forgiveness, compassion, and empathy is what's needed for an individual coming home from incarcerated, for those that love. And then communication, because inside the walls, the male is like the most looked forward to event of the day. And so if you have a loved one that's inside, make sure you're communicating with them, staying in tune with them, support them. And then, that process of coming home, showing them support and what they need, just be there for them. Kudos to Julie for her organization that she created off the strength of what Eric experienced. That was a lot of wisdom behind it. And look at extraordinary it is now. And so that's about all I got to say, because Kaisha, you took it all. But it's okay. It's okay. If anybody has any questions, I can be moved by questions and I can answer, but I'm
We had
Diana Winchester. Go ahead.
We had Max in the chat ask if we could touch on the healing process. I want to see what you think about that. Like what you talked about loss, the healing process of both coming out of the system, meeting loved ones you had lost, like throughout that and coming out. Just what are your thoughts on that and like how to heal and what that looks like?
Okay, so with grief, I would say initially I used to always get angry. That was my go-to when I lost somebody. I instantly got angry, but then I was only harming myself when I got angry. So I had to surrender to God and ask God to help me heal in those places and get understanding, because I didn't grow up with somebody teaching me that loved ones was going to die and I would, lose people that I cared about so suddenly and things like that. So once I got understanding and allow God to come into my heart and help me with the healing process, it's been better. I talk about it. I allow myself to feel my emotions. When that comes up, I cry when I need to cry. And sometimes it sucks. You know what I mean? Yeah, and allow myself to feel my feelings and talk to people about it. Like I will talk to whoever it is around sometime if I have to, or talk to my counselor, talk to trusted people, family members, because we have all experienced the loss. So yeah, talking about it, praying, talking to a counselor, and just doing something besides harming yourself. Like I would not suggest drugs and alcohol to numb yourself. We don't want to do those things that contributes to more harm, but doing something that's going to be helpful. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Diana. We're gonna on that kind of note too, in terms of talking about healing. Like we've heard a lot, I think, from your perspective as being impacted. We've heard Cassie's from the trauma experience, and I think we're gonna pass now to Kathy Aguilar just to talk a little bit how Kathy's kind of dealt with it as the family member seeing people come home. So, Kathy, when you're ready, feel free to take it away. You are muted, Kathy. Sorry.
There, can you hear me now? Okay. My brother was 16 when he went in, and he was 51 when he came home. And I think for me, the most important conversation was his attorney gave me. And he told me, he goes, Joe, and basically this is what was covered too, Cassie. He said he went in at 16. He goes, he's a grown man. You have conversations with him right now as full-blown adults. He goes, but the moment he comes home, that 16-year-old is going to be there. He goes, and you're going to have the patience for that. If his attorney did not tell me that, believe me, I wanted to strangle my brother several times. And over, it's silliness, really. I mean, it's like a beautiful woman walks by and like he's like, oh my God. I'm like, roll your tongue up, Joseph. I said, you look like the cartoons, when the tongue falls all the way out and then the little eyeballs are going. So it was just like, he's like, no. And I'm like, yeah. I go, so it's kind of like I would just like point out little things, or the understanding of stuff. Sometimes like we'll talk, because like my mom passed away while he was in there. And so coming home, it was like dealing out with the emotions and stuff. I always took pictures, because like I said, he went in at 16. I took pictures of every single thing there was. And I know friends would tease me and call me paparazzi, but my whole thing was to send them to him so he got to see everything. And so like my mom's wake, I took pictures from walking in the door, her sign stuff, and it took him like 5 years to actually look at them when I sent them to him. So when he came home, that was like a discussion for us, here. And, it was an emotional discussion, because it's like, I don't think he really talked to anybody in there. And I met a lot of people through him. He served 35 years. A lot of his friends, when they came home, they were still, they were friends for me too. And what I seen through all of them is they turn their emotions off. They don't have that, I don't know, they don't show love. They don't show, emotion, the hugging and all of that. Birthdays, Christmas, it's like it's just another day for them. It's nothing to celebrate for. And it took a long time to get my brother like his first birthday home. His daughter was like, "Oh, happy," and he's like, "It's just another day." He goes, "I don't want to celebrate." And it's like I had to break it down to him, like, "Look, she has not had you for 35 years. It means a lot to her. To you, it's another day." And it took a long time for them to get that trust and those emotions that we take for granted out here to come back. But like direction, it's the things that we take every single day of life for granted. It's a challenge for them. Directions. I used to tell Joe, go north. He's the hell with the north and south. Just give me a landmark. Just tell me something that I could see and that I know. I mean, he would literally be 2 blocks from home and not know how to get home because the sense of directions. They've not been out here. So, he wasn't sure which way was right. I mean, what north, south, east, west, So it was like we would do landmarks for him. Trust. Trust was another big thing. And I would, I mean, we did have trust issues, and it was one big thing that happened, and he basically broke it down to me. He goes, "Look, my entire life, I've always had to look over my shoulder and watch my back." And I was like, "But I'm your sister." I'm like, "How could you not trust me?" But it's not that he didn't trust me. It's just 35 years is what he lived with. So to try to get that simple trust, even of a family member back, it's like a cage door that's been chained and locked up, and you get them boat colors, and it's old, so you hear the squeaking, the creaking, and everything comes out. But it's just the simple things of life that it's difficult for them. It truly is. Electronics, the technology of today's world, it was mind-blowing for him. It took him a long time to grasp, and if anything, it's patience. And I say it over and over because you will need patience. He would forget his password to, the bank account and everything. And I would always reset it. And I remember one time, I think it was like the 6th or 7th time. It's 9 o'clock at night. He's coming in my bedroom. I can't get into my bank account. I said, "Okay, so he's locked out." I go, "Well, you're going to learn how to change it." "No, no, no, just do it for me. Just do it for me." I said, "No, it took us 40 minutes to change it." And he was mad at me. He goes, "It took us 40 minutes. You could have just did it in 5 minutes." I go, "But you learn how to do it, right?" I said, "So the next time you'll either remember or you'll know how to change it yourself." But it's like, you can't keep on doing things for them. You want to keep on helping them, you do. But the hardest thing that I had to learn for myself is that you've been, how do I put it? You've been their lifeline for decades. You've been their lifeline for decades. They came to you because that was their way, their only communication to the outside world. Once they're out here, all the options and all those doors are wide open for them. And you do have to let go. My brother served 35 years. I had a friend that served 28 years. When they came home within 3 years apart, it was so difficult for me to not keep on helping them. And I mean, if anything, it's not just like teaching them. You're going to have to learn yourself to let go. You got, all, like I said, I did it 35 years for one, 28 years for the other, that when they came home, I was still finding myself doing things for them. When my brother actually told me one time, he goes, "You just got to let me make my own mistakes." He goes, "You're not mom, Cat." And that hurt me. That really did. I was just like, "Oh my God, did you really tell me that?" But it was right. I did. And I was like, "Fine." I said, "Go ahead and make your own mistakes." So it's like when he would struggle with stuff, I would not offer to help. It's like, until he turned around and asked me for the help. But I wouldn't just step in and say, here you go. But Let me just get rid of this. So it's kind of like a learning and healing process on both sides. Then I had two other friends come home after 42 years. They called every day the same way, but with them I kind of learned. I was like, I'm not like there. It's like they'll call me, "Hey Kat, can you help me with this?" Or, "Hey Kat, I can't do this, can you walk me through it?" But it's like it's a separation. It's like Siamese twins. You're stuck at the heart and the core with them until they're home. And at that point, they do need you. I won't say they won't need you. They do need you, but it's a separate type of need that they're gonna need. And that's more like the patience, the compassion. They're gonna have to learn how to feel those emotions again, because emotions inside prison would get them killed. It's true. If they opened up their heart and they had all of those feelings and stuff, it's dangerous for them in there. So they turn all of that off, and for it to be turned off for decades, it's not going to just turn on the first year. I mean, Joe's been home 7 years now, and I'd say the first 5 years were a roller coaster up and down. It's simple things. It's truly simple things that we just keep on taking for granted. But for them, they're relearning how to channel those emotions.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I'm going to bring up our next speaker, Reese. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit more about yourself?
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, my name is Maurice Hughes. And I just want to touch on what Diana said, because it's becoming more apparent to me sitting here listening to everybody that I just want to congratulate Restore Justice first of all, because I can tell you, based off of everything that Cassia, I apologize if I'm saying it wrong, and Diana and everyone, I realized they definitely set me up for success, because I'm just listening to everyone and I'm reflecting on just things that I didn't experience since I've been home. And I'm thinking about, like Kathy was talking about, the cell phone, just all these things wasn't, excuse me. Yeah, all these things wasn't around when I got locked up. I served 27 years. I came home in April 22. And I just want to share real quickly, and then I'll tell you all about the work that I do. I just want to share something real quickly. While I was still doing my apprenticeship at Restore Justice, I had a situation where our hot water heater, or whatever, however you call that, went out. Now, initially, I didn't think, it was a big deal. I'm like, okay, well, we got to let the landlord know so he can come and fix this and whatever. By the second day, something just came over me that I was like really struggling, because it took me back to prison, with cold showers. And I thought once I left prison, I would never have to take a cold shower again unless I wanted to. And I couldn't believe just how that one incident had affected me so bad. Like, I'm talking about mentally, it really did something to me, So I just so appreciative of Restore Justice, first of all, for just all the different trainings and having every Tuesday where we met with Margaret to talk, and we could have private one-on-one sessions with Margaret. Just so many different things that I felt like kind of helped me from the outset to learn how to just deal with things, how to cope with things and stuff like that. So shout out to Restore Justice. Currently right now I work at Uptown's People Law Center, and I know everyone is talking about the support that families need. I mean, that individuals returning home, that their families can provide them support. But I also want to just speak about like some of the things that are key, and housing is a big. I work at Uptown People Law Center, and what I do there, I'm an outreach coordinator. So basically, I'm tasked with trying to find different ways to get our trainings out to the public, information out to the public, rather. One of my particular things that I'm interested in trying to get out there is the Just Housing Amendment. And this is something that affects individuals like myself who are returning citizens, because this law is Cook County law, first of all, that was passed, I believe, in like February of 2020. And this prevents landlords from being able to discriminate against people with backgrounds or arrest or conviction records and things. So there it's a whole new process for how they put this together, that it makes it very easy and simple, for landlords to follow. Unfortunately, a lot of times they still don't follow that. So if anyone that's having an issue with that, or when your loved one do return home and they're first time that want to, venture out and try to apply for housing, if they have any issue in that area where they feel like they have been discriminated against or denied housing for those reasons, one of the things you can do is please reach out to Uptown's People Law Center, and we will assist with that. We don't necessarily help find housing, but we do have a resource bank where if someone reach out to us, then we can provide them with different resources, And if I'm just being completely honest here, there's a lot of organizations that does that work, but they're not doing that work. So I love the fact that on our end, where we can come in at is to try to, help litigate those situations and be that mediator to either, help get them money or get them housing, in terms if they're trying to be, if they're being evicted or if they're being denied housing for discriminatory reasons. And Judy had provided me with a couple of questions, so I just want to touch on these. And one of the questions they was asking, what should someone do if they are denied housing? Oh yeah, reach out to us. What
Real
do you
quick,
wish your
Reese. Someone asked in chat if the law you were talking about is just for Cook County.
No, it's the Just Housing Amendment.
Is it for the state then, or
It's just for the Cook County. Anyone that's living within Cook County, the Cook County area.
okay?
And Judy asked, what do you wish your loved ones knew before you return home? To be honest, I think that's pretty much been covered. And if I'm being honest for my own personal experience, to be honest with you, as I was listening to Cassie and Diana, I realized that I'm still figuring that out myself. So I can understand how that would be difficult for my family and them to know, because I've been home now almost going on 3 years, and I tell you, I'm still figuring things out there. I need to help me out here, so yeah. If anyone have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
If no one else has a direct question, I'm wondering if you could touch on Max asked earlier. He had to leave, unfortunately, but what touch on the healing process for you and what that looks like.
The touch and healing process. Well, like I say, and I know Judy used to get upset with me about this even when I was at Restore Justice, because she like, stop always praising Restore Justice. But I do feel like everything that has been mentioned in terms of patience. And then I also want to just I know I underline a few things that like being overwhelmed easily. That's a thing that's true for me. I definitely can get overwhelmed easily sometimes, but as Diana said, I've been making a good practice, not only since I've been home, but throughout my incarceration as well, to just constantly work on myself every day. I reflect at the end of every day, things I could have did right, things that things I could have said better. So I'm always kind of like self-reflecting and just being mindful. Like Kathy said, when I was doing my 27 years, I think I might have only cried one time when I was doing my incarceration. But since I've been home, I can't tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've cried. Like, so, long as you're allowing yourself to feel, then I think you are healing. You know, at least that's my take on it. So the fact that I'm back in touch with my emotions and things, and I used to get upset when I would cry, but now I just roll with it, and I definitely see it as a form of healing.
Thank you. Julie asked, is a journal a good idea?
Yes, and I just learned about that from uh, oh, I can't remember her last name, but I just learned about journaling from well, someone that's a friend of mine's, and I haven't started it yet. So, but I do plan on starting to try to do some journaling, to see how that helps too. So I think it helps.
I was going to deflect that too to Cassia, that is journaling maybe for both family members and formerly incarcerated people.
Yeah, I think it goes on that same exactly what Reese was talking about. It's a way of letting out your emotions. So if talking to your family member about your emotions or talking to someone else is difficult, just sort of taking that moment, maybe every evening or every morning, or, just like a check-in with yourself. Like, how did I feel this morning? How did I feel midday? How am I feeling tonight? Right? It's just like a check-in with yourself, but you're also forcing yourself to actually feel and identify those emotions, which I think is so, so hard for all of us in general. So yeah, I think journaling works for some folks, doesn't work for others. So it depends. Yeah.
I wish Max could have stayed on because he was talking about healing, and I think this is kind of very specific to possibly healing on both ends. So, oh well, I'll have to email him. He had to get off.
We can send him the
recorded it.
recording.
Well, thanks for that, Reese. We're still waiting on Michael. I think he's going to be coming in about 10 minutes or so. But I thought maybe in that meantime, if we maybe want to shift our schedule a little bit to have Lee from the Education Justice Project kind of give a little bit of an overview of returning citizens and returning handbooks. So Lee, if that's okay, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure, thank you. I actually have a lot to talk about, so you might need to shut me up. First of all, I'm really excited to be here. My husband has been out for 11 years, and this is the first time I've connected with a group of family members. So it's very meaningful for me to be here. A lot of what you're saying rings true with me. I never heard it quite said like that. So yeah, it's great to be here. But I am here to talk about the Education Justice Project's reentry guide called Mapping Your Future. So I'd like a show of hands if you have a copy of this guide, or if you've had one in the past. Okay, cool. I'm glad it's getting out there. If you don't have one, I will definitely tell you how to request a copy before you leave today. This is a book that we've been producing since 2015 at the University of Illinois Education Justice Project. And over the last few years, we've been sending multiple thousands of copies to the Illinois Department of Corrections. So you might have seen them on the inside. So I'm going to share my screen. I've got a little PowerPoint. So this is the brand new 2024 edition that came out a couple of weeks ago. Sorry, my screen is loading slowly. There we go. So if you don't have this new edition, we definitely want to get it to you. You might recognize some of the folks on the cover. So we love including photos of alumni and other system impacted people. We do pay a stock photo fee. So if you like taking photos and you want to contribute, you can certainly do that. So just a little bit about me. This is the more professional stuff. Usually when I present, I talk about the more professional stuff, but I'll go off script here in a second. So I've been with EJP since 2010 when I was a graduate student at the University of Illinois. And I helped to create a second reentry guide that we have that I'd love to talk to you more about if we have time. It's called A New Path, a guide to the challenges and opportunities after deportation. So my husband, there's a picture of him, was deported after spending time in IDOC because his parents had brought him to the US when he was 4 months old. If they brought him 6 months earlier, we wouldn't be living in Mexico. But I'm zooming in from my home in Mexico. So if any of your loved ones are undocumented, or if you know undocumented people in your community that face deportation, we'd love to get you a copy of this guide. And I'd love for you to reach out to me personally because I have a network of people here in Mexico that support people after deportation. And as an aside, I also run an animal rescue organization. So if you're an animal lover, check us out. It's called Mexi Pets Animal Rescue. So just briefly, I don't want to assume that you've heard of EJP. We're primarily a college and prison program. So we operate in Danville Correctional Center. So if you have loved ones who've been there, they may have heard of us. We were one of the first programs after Pell Grants were eliminated in the state, but now luckily there's lots of, well, not lots, but there are other college and prison programs. We hope that will grow. We also have a policy and research division, a prison to gown pathway program, which is new and really exciting. So we hope to literally pick up people at the gate on the day of their release, drive them to campus, help them move in, help them get oriented to continue their studies at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. We also have an internship program. But what I direct is our reentry guide initiative. So just to give you a little bit of history, our alumni in 2015 let us know that when they were released from IDOC, they were given like a stack of papers stapled in the middle, Xerox so many times you couldn't read them, of resources from the 90s. And they said, we can do better, right? So in 2015, we printed the first edition of Mapping Your Future. We printed 52 copies. This last year, we sent out 19,000. So if you don't have one, we definitely want to get you one. I'll tell you a little bit more about the guide. These are some of our members. Some of us are from the university community, others are family members, and others are formerly incarcerated or system impacted individuals. Here's our mission. We connect people to resources for a healthy transition to life after prison. We provide tools for self-empowerment, and we recognize and address the trauma people experience during incarceration and re-entry. So I really appreciate what Cassia was saying about trauma. That's something that I've experienced, secondary trauma, in fact. Hearing my husband talk about a lot of the stories from when he was incarcerated. So I would encourage everyone to be aware of that potential for you to also be affected by someone else's trauma. So here's what we produce. We don't only have a Illinois reentry guide. We also have a national reentry guide. So if you know someone who's returning home in a different state, we can send them a copy. All our guides are available in both Spanish and English. And there in the middle is the deportation guide I mentioned. So, you know, my husband had never lived in Mexico, not since he was 4 months old. And after his incarceration, he was dropped at the border of a foreign country with $50. They opened the gate and they said, there's Mexico, good luck. So it's a completely different reentry experience, right? You need to know about shelters at the border. You need to know how to stay safe, how to use your English skills potentially to get employment. So this is another comprehensive guide on that topic. In addition to our print guides, we have a reentry website. And if someone could share that in the chat, it's reentryillinois.net. In fact, we have a little bit of time. I'll just go there briefly to show you some of the resources. Let's see. Here's the website. I want you to know specifically about this reentry directory. First of all, you can download PDFs of all the guides. So if you want it like right now, you don't want to wait for the mail, you can do that. But we do have a searchable database of reentry resources throughout the state. So you can say, okay, my loved one is coming home to Springfield. And let's look at food resources. So there's the local food bank, there's information on how to sign up for SNAP, Illinois Food Distribution Program sites, and more. That's just one example. There's lots of categories here that you can click on, and it will direct you sometimes to local organizations, sometimes to statewide organizations, and sometimes to directories or national organizations. So just so you're aware that there's many different types of resources listed here. The other thing I want to show you, what happened? Went back too far. Is our video series. So if you go under other resources, reentry videos, there's some of our reentry stories, but where's our reentry videos? Come on. Did I click on the wrong thing? Yes, I did. Videos. So this one is really good, if I do say so myself, preparing mentally for release. So a number of our alumni, formerly incarcerated people, some people you may know, Pablo Mendoza's in the video, Chili Mayorga, talk about just what we've been talking about today, right? The trauma and how you can prepare mentally. We shared this video with IDOC, and they've let us know that it's being shown somewhat in prisons, but we haven't actually gotten confirmation of that. But it was designed for someone to watch before their release, but it would also be good for family members. And then we've got this practical video on getting your documents in Illinois. I'm going to go back to the presentation. So again, that's reentryillinois.net. Why this is loading so slowly. So here's a couple pictures of our operation on campus. So if you happen to be in Champaign-Urbana, please come by and visit. Okay, so here's our office and some students coming in and responding to letters from people all over the country requesting one of our guides or multiple guides. So this is something we've been doing since 2015. So the word is out and we get lots and lots of letters and we always respond and send the guides that are requested. I'm wondering, before I switch gears and dive into the book, if there's any questions that anyone has about anything I've shared so far. Okay, keep going. There we go. Okay, so the main sections of the guide. Well, actually, I realized that I've skipped something because usually I give this presentation and it takes about an hour and I've cut out a lot of slides. So I want to take a step back and mention that our guide is produced. A lot of us are directly impacted or family members. We have an advisory council of people who have been incarcerated who guide our work. And we find that it's extremely important to center the experiences and the voices of people who've been incarcerated. So I don't want you to think of us as a bunch of university people telling you how to do this. It is based on the experiences and written in large part by people who have been through the system. So it's divided into 5 sections. Before you leave, so what you can do to prepare from the inside, right? After you're out, all those things that you gotta wait till you're out to really address fully. There's a section on healing and moving forward. And we have a print directory in the back of the book that parallels that online directory, but it is more streamlined in the print form. And we have some forms in the back. So just to give you a quick overview of the contents, I don't want to go too far into detail here, but we do have information on preparing mentally for release, gathering your documents. Some of these you can do from the inside. Preparing for your job search. You can write your resume. You can make connections from the inside. Housing, that might be something you can set up on the inside. Health, right? You can potentially request a doctor visit, whether that happens or not. You can request your prescriptions for a certain period of time. And then there's additional information about mandatory supervised release. In the after you get out section, we have information on getting your ID, resources to meet your basic need, housing, and we do include the information that you shared, Reese, on the law. So we keep this, I should say, we update this annually. And if you know of things that we need to include that have happened within the last year, or if you read through this guide and you see that there's something missing, please reach out. We definitely want this to be as up to date and useful as possible. You'll see some of the other categories are health, trauma and mental health, substance use, transportation and technology, legal matters, finances, voting, and veterans. So this is an extremely comprehensive guide, but we're always improving it. Healing and moving forward. So a lot of our students, I say students because I'm thinking of our college and prison program, but a lot of our alumni who were formerly in our program found that mindfulness was really helpful. So a meditation practice. So one of our advisory council members, Pablo Mendoza, recently rewrote this mindfulness chapter. So that is also a tool for dealing with trauma. We've also been told that our Connecting with Your Community chapter is really meaningful for people because a lot of people want to get out and make change in their communities, right? They want to, I don't really like the term give back, but they want to, change. They want to advocate. They want to contribute in their communities. Very briefly, we have subdirectories of all these resources. And we have some forms that people can tear out of the back of the book and go ahead and mail in so they can start that birth certificate process, Social Security card, and other things. As I mentioned, we want to really center the voices of formerly incarcerated people. So we have quotes throughout the book. You may know some of these people. I think you mentioned everything that they're saying here today, right? So Pablo says, "My family thinks that because I'm free, all my problems are over. But really, we carry all this baggage with us. The coping mechanisms we had on the inside are still with us, and they create barriers on the outside." And Marlon Chamberlain, I'm sure a lot of you know him, said, "Seek counseling. There's nothing wrong with therapy." And then Mike tells the same story that someone on the call earlier, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, about when you go to the store and try to use that link card, debit card for the first time, and people are lined up behind you, sighing at you, and the stress of that and panic that induces. So there's lots of these very real stories that are shared throughout the book. It's not just, information, but it's also sharing advice and stories and experiences. Back to the practical part. What can you use the guide for? Everything from applying to Medicaid or applying for a job to using a credit card, getting a link card. A relatively new chapter is on regaining parental rights. You might need to get a certificate of rehabilitation to do a particular career that you're interested in pursuing. You can get financial aid for college. In fact, the Education Justice Project offers a scholarship every year for people in Illinois who were incarcerated in IDOC. Not only for people who were incarcerated, but for the first time this year, we're providing scholarships for people currently incarcerated. And we also have an option for family members of incarcerated people. So it's not till November of next year, but definitely follow us on social media and you'll be able to get that notice when the scholarship competition opens up again. Getting a state ID, opening a bank account, etc. How do you get this lovely guide, you might ask? Well, we'd love to send it to you for free or send it to your loved one who might potentially still be inside. As I mentioned, you can download a PDF. We get mail requests all the time, but probably the easiest way is through this form. And as soon as I stop sharing my screen, I will share the link in the chat for you to request the copies that you need. As I mentioned, this is a topic that is very personal for me, deportation after incarceration. In fact, many people don't know that there are about 1 million US citizens who are effectively exiled to Mexico and Central America because we chose to marry a non-citizen with a felony conviction. So there are a lot of resources for families and individuals who have to have this double reentry, right? And start their lives over again, but in a foreign country. As I mentioned, all our guides are available in Spanish, so please request the language that you need. And you might be thinking, how do I join this awesome group? Well, we would love for you to. Here's a link. We invite people with lived experience. We value your experience and your input. There might be a chapter that you know a lot about and you would like to help us rewrite for the next year. You might have an idea of where we should share the guides. So our national guide and our deportation guide are relatively new. So we are looking for outreach ideas, and we're always open to feedback on all of our content. So I think that's my last slide. Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Lee. Again, Lee said that she'll put some information in the chat. Chris has already put some as well. So please use that resource. We are still waiting on Michael Harrell, I believe. But in the meantime, we can kind of just keep things rolling and move into questions. So give a minute or two for people to put questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask verbally. If you are going to do that, I just ask that you do the raise hand or message or something, just so we can kind of keep track of order and all that. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I will. No one else is. Thank you. And I didn't know you had the guide. I had mailed several of those out when they first started coming out. Well, probably 2017, so they weren't brand new. And the guys inside really liked them. I didn't know you had the one on deportation. A friend of my son's actually is German, and I mean, people often think of it as strictly being Mexico, and it's not. So that was really, really enlightening. Oh, here's Michael. Yay. Moving right along. Do we want to, were there questions though in the chat that we want to?
Reese had his hand raised. If
Okay.
you want to go in on that, Reese, and then we can introduce Michael, unless there was another question.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I didn't know Michael had arrived. I was just gonna speak about some more things that I do at Uptown People Law Center that I forgot to speak about. My bad, but
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Do that.
Okay, well, also I apologize. I just was trying to be. I wasn't aware of what time it was, so I was just trying to leave time for other people to speak. But also at Uptown People Law Center, I also respond to prison mail as well. And one of the misconceptions about Uptown's People Law Center, and I've had a couple of my own friends tell me like, man, when I was locked up, I wrote to them, they didn't take my case. Well, unfortunately, the only prison cases that we do are like the class actions. But in some cases where it's let me see, like maybe there's something that's we only do class actions, but sometimes we will intervene in a way, like if someone's having like issues with receiving medical care or something like that. In certain situations, we will try to intervene in ways that we can. But other than that, we also do Social Security. So like if Social Security benefits, so if you have a loved one that is of age that is trying to get their Social Security benefits, like if they are currently inside, then I think it's a process that we should start, like once they get 8 months within their release date, then we can step in and assist them with that as well. I don't know a whole lot about that because I don't deal with that area, but I just wanted to put that out there for family and loved ones on this call who might want to know that information. So.
And Reese, just to clarify, so when you're talking about the class actions, you mean, I think you mentioned before about, like, for example, the issue about denial of housing, and that's like you're would be suing someone on behalf of multiple people.
Well, the with housing, no, we do individual cases for that. Just in terms of prison, what we do in terms of prisons, we only take on like class action lawsuits, things that affect everyone versus just an individual, like you know, things that's dealing with mental health. We have a couple class action lawsuits actually dealing with Orange Crush going in and, you know, using excessive force on guys, tearing up guys, properties, confiscating guys, belongings, things, stuff like that, that affects everyone. Then we kind of like take on those type of cases. But in terms of like housing, like yeah, we anyone that reach out to us that they feel like they've had an illegal lockout or a bogus eviction, they're trying to get repairs in their unit, and the landlord is not cooperating. All those things we can assist with on an individual level.
I put the question in the chat, but I'll just ask you, Reese. So do you take on cases like I put a rental application in and maybe there wasn't a box to check. I didn't check the box that they had a felony conviction or something, right? And the landlord does a background check, which every single person here knows that's what landlords do. And they see this felony conviction. Is there a way, I mean, do you have to have some kind of proof, or that you think that's why? I mean, if you have, I mean, does the landlord have to come up with criteria? Your credit should be this, your income this, and
well,
you
first off, it don't supposed to be a checkbox on that application,
okay.
period. That's first. And then the process in itself is like I said, it's fairly simple. There's the pre-qualification. They first have to you know, do a pre-qualification to see whether or not you can afford the living unit. Once they complete that and you are approved, that they see that you can afford, then they supposed to notify you that you have been approved, you've been pre-qualified. Then they are to notify you that now we're going to be doing a background check. After they do that background check, if they do find something in your background check, then they got to provide that to you in writing to give you an opportunity to be able to contest that, explain in further details what that is. In some cases, it's just not even a person, actual person. It's someone with the same name as you, but that's not the person. So then there's that. And then, so basically, like, usually it don't even get that far. Like a lot of times we found what we've been experiencing, they're running the background check before even doing the pre-qualification. So just in terms of it, you needing proof, well, it's the attorneys probably could speak a little bit more better to this, but from my understanding is that, like, if you've already been pre-qualified and they told you that, now if they deny you out the gate, then you know something's not right, you know. So it's like I'm trying to think. Actually, I think I'm gonna stop there because I don't want to give any misinformation. I would leave that one to the attorneys. But like I said, it's a pretty simple step, you know, that they must do. It's only like 4 steps, and there a lot of times we just seeing that they just not doing it. A lot of times landlords feel like it's my property, it's my building. I have the right to say who gets to live here or not. That's how they look at it, you know. So when they do that, like I say, reach out to Uptown's People Law Center, and we would definitely try to help you with that problem.
Reese, we have one more question that just popped in from Jill. She's asking, what are the requirements for your home to be approved, and what are things that are cause for denial in terms of when renting from a landlord? Just some brief thoughts on that.
Well, in terms of being approved, I would just imagine if you can show that you can afford, you know, to afford the unit, and you don't have anything that's in your background is showing that you will be any danger to other tenants in the building, then I really don't see no reason why you shouldn't be approved. We have been seeing this thing lately too with this, like with this salary, like they want you to have like 4 times the salary or something like that. And we just had a meeting with the 40 Alderman Velasquez, where in their ward, they were seeing a lot of issues with this salary thing that I forget what the issues was, but in terms of what are the things cause for denial, as far as denial, it's really hard to say. I done seen all type of reasons. You know, the landlords they come up with all type of reasons. You know, so it's really hard for me to say. But I just know, like, if you can prove that you can afford to live in the unit and you don't have anything in your background showing that you are any danger to any of the tenants, then I don't see no reason why you should be denied.
Thank you for that, Reese. We'll come back in a little bit for questions, but we do want to honor Michael, who was able to take some time out of his day. And absolutely no worries that you're a little late, but we'll kind of loop you in now. Michael, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about your current position and your experience, we'd love to have it. And then we'll roll back into another session of questions.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Michael Harrell, and I currently work as a community case manager supervisor at Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation. And as a community case manager supervisor, one of the roles that I also hold is that I coordinate our transitional housing that we hold for returning citizens. In addition to, I do reentry case management. So we provide a number of different services for individuals who are returning citizens, as far as accompaniment, as far as coordinating and helping them to be referred to one of our partner organizations that provide behavioral health services and things of that nature. But one of the things that I think that qualified or prepared me for this role is that I am a returning citizen myself. Prior to my role that I've been serving a little over 2 years, I was incarcerated for over 2 decades. And during that time, I spent a number of years, a number of hours just preparing myself for a position similar to this, or a position that's exactly like this. So that's some of the things that I think were, if I think Eric could speak to. I think all of the returning citizens really could hold testimony to the diligence that may have been used in the process of preparation for the moment when we were able to have the opportunities to show our worthiness and show our skills and our capabilities. So I don't want to just ramble on. I don't know how much has been shared prior to my time here. So any particular direction that we would like to address as far as different services that we may have at Precious Blood, or I don't know what trajectory should we approach? So,
Well, I might want to ask Michael, how does someone get in touch with Precious Blood, and what is the criteria for getting into the transitional housing, and how long does that last? And sorry to just hound you with 3 questions at once, but they never mind.
oh, that's fine. There's no problem at all. So to get in touch with Precious Blood, we do have a website where our phone number is placed on it. But most of the time, people get in touch with Precious Blood just through personal reference. They may know someone that knows someone, and they get in contact through a personal phone number. We all use all of our case managers. We're basically on call 24/7, even though we do work we have a set time of 9 to 5. And for our transitional housing, it's primarily used for those returning citizens who have done terms of incarceration that exceed over 20 years. That is our preference, because we understand that those that have served longer extents of incarceration may be those that are affected the most drastically when it comes to having support from family, from friends, from loved ones, because those people may have passed on, or they may have just been separated by distance and time, and they're no longer a viable option. in that case, in the event of that, I mean, in opposed to that, we do make exceptions for those who have not been incarcerated for extenuous periods of time, but it's on a case by case basis. And some of the things that we do for those that do have the opportunity to engage in transitional housing is that we engage them in case management, and we go with them through the process of being reacclimated back into society. One of the things that I think that benefits our organization, me in particular, with assisting someone become reacclimated back into society, is that I myself have gone through that process. I'm only 2 years and 3 months into that process of being reintroduced and reacclimated back into society. And it's a continuing process. So I think for me, having the lived experience provides me with the intricate knowledge, the experience, and the patience and consideration that many people would find useful and beneficial. Because for most individuals who were locked up, whether it's male or female, we develop this sense of independence to a large extent, where we are hesitant to ask others for assistance because of fear of rejection or just because of our lived experience and the acknowledgement that many times our pleas for help go unheard or they are denied. So I think with that, that gives our organization, Precious Blood, as well as myself, a unique opportunity to be at a very profound benefit to those who do have the opportunity to be a part of our transitional housing. And the transitional housing, it's initially set for 9 months to 12 months, which we try to cut it off at 12 months. But in many cases, we have noticed that 12 months may not be enough time because of some of the things that was just spoken about with the difficulty of acquiring housing. Some of the things where individuals, they may have just gotten their self-established as far as gaining sustainable and gainful employment and developing financial literacy all in the process. So we understand that that is a drawn out process, that a term of 12 months may be somewhat short, but we do try to encourage others by pushing the envelope to put people in situations to challenge them, because during incarceration, you learn that character is built through moments of adversity. So when you're in the level of comfort, it's rare that your character will be refined and be shown. So we do try to stimulate individuals to step outside of their comfort zone and try to prepare them the best that we can for the transition that will be beyond our transitional housing.
Thanks so much for that, Michael. We just had another couple questions come in about that specifically. Do you, as the person like who's living there, do they pay a portion of the rent? And another kind of follow-up question to that: when someone is leaving the transitional housing, does Precious Blood help you find another place to live?
So some of the things that we do encourage for individuals, that once they have acquired gainful employment, that after they have been in the transitional house for a period of 3 months or more, we do ask that they pay a comparable price that would be the cost of rent as if they were staying in an actual apartment. The purpose of that is try to help individuals to gain the experience and the thought process of paying bills on a regular basis, being obligated to take care of your necessities, to prioritize those things. Some of the things that we do once individuals transition is we walk with them along the process of looking for housing. And if the individuals are in need of assistance in transitioning into that housing, we do provide assistance as far as trying to help supplement some of the costs. And in addition, we try to help to connect them with the furniture bank, which will provide furniture for their housing.
Thanks so much, Michael. I think with that, then we'll kind of flow right into to questions. Again, same thing as we mentioned before, feel free to either send them in the chat or you can raise your hand for Zoom. We can call on you, whatever works for you. We also have a couple questions that have already come up in case we don't have any questions coming in.
I saw that Tammy, and they had put in the chat about the Champaign area with first followers with rent. And I'm going to say, is that just in that area for first followers?
Currently, yes. Hi, everybody. So currently, I came on board with the it's TBRA Reentry Pilot Program. So I was just trying to type it in the chat, but last year we did manage to, and this is in collaboration with the Regional Planning Commission here in Champaign-Urbana. So they are the ones that are providing the funding for the program. So my role is to collect the documents and send over the application. So last year we were able to place 10 individuals that had had 6 months or less, had been released from either IDOC or the current county jail. And we have, we currently, and I get a little emotional about this one, we placed an individual that he had one offense that occurred 35 years ago. And he was a registered sex offender. So they kept sending him back to jail because he could not provide an address. So we were the first ones to provide him with the address. And unfortunately, he just passed away. So, but you know, that's just one of the issues that's so wrong with the justice system. This man was kept getting violated because he could not provide an address, you know. So currently we're on our second, because within 2.5 months we exhausted the funding for that program, and we're on our second round of funding. We exhausted that funding in 2 weeks. We have now a waiting list, and we need more funding, you know. And the challenge is to find, you know, suitable housing for these individuals, because of course the stigma, you know, of them being incarcerated and all that, you know, it's just so challenging, you know, to find adequate housing and not put them in a place where I wouldn't want my dog to live, you know. So those are the challenges that I've been faced with. And of course we have, you know, some that don't make the program, but you know, we're still at an 80% success rate.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Does anyone else have any questions coming up right now?
Okay, we hear.
Oh, sorry. I think one that we didn't address is kind of, we actually sent this out to our panelists, but we want to address how did or what advice, like how do you navigate issues of stigma and judgment returning from prison, or like when a loved one returns from prison? And this is open to any of the panelists if they have any thoughts on it.
I tend to put it back on the experiment of mass incarceration that we've done in this country, right? Like 1 in 3 people have some kind of involvement with the criminal justice system, whether it's an arrest or a conviction. We incarcerate more people than any other developed country in the world. I tend to emphasize that this is not about individual failings. This is about a systemic issue, an experiment that has not brought about you know, reduced levels of crime. It hasn't worked. It's been a failed experiment. So I think that takes the emphasis off the individual as having a moral failure or something, which a lot of people want to might assume, to encouraging them to think about, you know, the laws and the policies that we have in our communities, and how, you know, a lot of people are impacted by the system unfairly.
I want to share that it you it can be a hard thing sometimes to, you know, shake off for yourself, the way you feel or think others might perceive you or whatever. And I'm learning. I heard something one time that someone said, and I don't know if it's true, but it was just a where I think they was saying like, Joby, like, you don't wear prison on you. And I thought about that, and I said, man, and it wasn't me that statement was referring to. And I just thought about it. I started questioning, like, I wonder, do I wear prison on me? Like, just in how I interact with people, how I talk, you know, and I found myself, that's something that I wanna kind of like rid myself of, or just always constantly questioning yourself about who you are, and where do you fit in and things. And I think it's important, to be honest with you, whether you've been incarcerated or not, for everybody to develop a strong sense of who they are, so that you're not constantly feeling, you know, swayed by how others might perceive you or think of you. You know, those things can tend to, you know, like weigh you down. So I just feel like it's not an easy, it's much easier said than done, but I think it's just something that we as returning citizens, impacted individuals, must always be constantly like showing ourselves grace, if you will, like showing ourselves grace to understand, like, yeah, we might have, for those of us who honestly made those mishaps and those mistakes in our younger years, we're totally different individuals now. We're grown. And so, like, yeah, you know, we got the opportunity. We've been praying for and wishing for. We're home now with our families. Let's just enjoy that. And whatever work that we out here doing, let's put our time and energy into that, to our families, giving back to our communities, and just move forward, you know. Stop worrying about everybody seeing you a certain way or liking you, or, you know, like, just everyone here today that's on this call, we all know that we're here for a reason. So just that 24 people alone, knowing that we have this same interest, and we're here trying to share information and figure out ways to be supportive of one another, that's your community there. So first thing to do is, you know, go where you are appreciated and not accepted. And that ain't mad. I stole that, but I like it. So.
Well, I want to thank Kasha, because some of the things you said really were really reiterated with me, just in general, and not just with Eric, my son, but I know a lot of people who've come home, and it's a joyful experience for sure. But you said some things that really, like the I need to catch up type of thing, because I think it, and it's catch up on everything, you know, like they need to catch up, we need to catch up on what we've been doing, and I think sometimes some of the expectations that families have are that this person's suddenly going to come home and just like hang out with them all the time or something. And of course Eric does hang out with me all the time. No, but seriously, it really resonated, because I know there is this like, I have to catch up and give back. So thank you. That was Yeah, it is hard.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate this.
I was gonna, Katya, I was gonna uplift a question that I don't think we were able to get to before that Lee had sent. Just talking about dealing with like secondhand trauma and as the family member, kind of reeling from the loss of like not having your loved one with you for years, and then also not only dealing with that kind of grief, but also and the kind of shock of having them back, but also with the sort of trauma that they've experienced. That was kind of while you were talking. I'm not sure if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I saw that way later on after I was done already. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Lee. I messaged Julie. I was like, I feel like there's so much I could say that is one of the things that I didn't get a chance to touch on. But yes, all those physical symptoms, and or psychological symptoms that I talked about in terms of trauma for the loved one who is coming home, the same. It's sort of what in another presentation that I've done, it's what I call like the cost of caring. Right. And it's when we are basically sitting, maybe like Lee mentioned, sitting and just like listening to her husband talk about what he went through. That is traumatizing for us as well. And so I think it's important sometimes, yes, our loved one needs to be heard, but also communicating about what that is doing to us and is important as well. And making sure that we're both taking care of each other in that relationship, whether it's mom and son, husband, wife, whatever is the relationship. I think it has the same effect, physical, mental effect on mind, body as well. So even taking little moments, like I loved also how Lee talked about the mindfulness portion in the reentry guidebook. Now, I talk about mindfulness all the time with clients, right? Just even giving yourself that few minutes of a peace of mind, whether it's a mindful walk, right? And sort of just paying attention to what you're seeing, what you're hearing, going around the block, something like that. That is mindfulness, right? You're just being in the present moment. And so, yeah, I think it's important. And I think it's important to normalize for family members that you will yourself be having a difficult time as well.
And I want to touch
Can
on
I-
something. Oh,
Julie, can I share something really fast? That
yes, please do.
so coming from a dysfunctional family, going into incarceration and then coming home to the same dysfunctions, and once I was incarcerated, I dealt with a lot of things that had happened in my childhood. So coming home to my family that has not or haven't went through the counseling and awareness or enlightenment of what had happened or what was occurring, I think loved ones need to be willing to work with the individual coming home from what they have realized and have awakening to in regard to like abuse and addiction and things like that, and be willing to work through these things so that that person can, be well off as well. So I think the loved ones need to be willing to work through some of those hard conversations and realizations as well. So I just wanted to add that.
Absolutely. I was going to say, Chris put in here about a hotline with formerly incarcerated people. Like if you come home and I think that's actually brilliant. I haven't heard of anything like that, but I think that's really a brilliant idea. And
Julie, can I give a little story too about that trauma?
Yeah.
Okay. When Joe first came home, we had to go to the store, and my grandson was probably about 5 or 6. And Joe was like, "Oh, I could watch him. I could watch him." Well, of course, he cut his finger. Joe called. I mean, I've never heard my brother so traumatized by the blood that was coming out of my grandson's finger. And I'm like, "Joe, you've seen blood before." And he was like, "Yes, but on a grown man, never on a child." It didn't dawn on me. He never really interacted with children because he was 16 when he went away. all my kids knew him on prison visits. So seeing a child bleed, I mean, it really, really messed his head up. And, just somebody coming home, you might not think that, a grown man is really going to freak out with a child bleeding. But like I said, he was 16, so he never had any dealings with a child that, it just totally freaked him out. And he was just, I mean, his mindset was messed up for like a week, just watching his finger, the finger bleed, which I was just like, just run it under cold water, put a towel, normal for me. But, for him, it wasn't. It was just something simple, and it really just blew his mind.
Wow. Anybody have any question? I think we can probably wrap up. And Michael and Chris probably have some things to share about what Restore Justice is doing, but I want to thank everyone. I have been at this work a long time, just not necessarily having my loved one home, but just in general, and seeing other people's loved ones come home, and just the trauma associated with incarceration. And I had to say, I learned so much. I'm like, okay, I took notes, but I think I have to watch the tape a few times.
Real quick, I linked about the Returning Citizens Network in the chat. It's a monthly meeting that RJ hosts for returning citizens or restored citizens. They kind of meet and form community. Tammy asked if it is in Zoom or in person. I know most of them are in person, but I think Lizzie or another one of our RJ alums can answer if they're in Zoom ever. If you know, Julie, I'm not positive. I know a lot of them are in person.
I
just don't know the answer.
You're asking.
I was gonna leave it to one of the returned citizens on the call to answer, but
you're asking about the RCN meetings being in person?
Yeah, Tammy asked if they're in Zoom or in person, and I have never gone to them, so I'm not sure what the answer is.
Yeah, they're in person.
Okay, cool.
I haven't been to any that were in Zoom, and so yeah, they're in person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, my son went in when he was 16 years old, and he came home when he was 43. And unfortunately, we don't have a relationship, because we didn't prepare. We did not prepare. We were not, I didn't have a clue. I thought I thought I was the only person on the planet, going through the dysfunction that we went through. So I'm really grateful for this meeting and Kasia sharing. It was like she was telling my story from the get-go, and unfortunately, like I said, it's been almost 2 years since he last spoke to me. So, I just, dove head in with First Followers. I love what I do, and I'm just going to continue to do it, So thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for inviting me to this meeting. Great.
So I think, Michael, you got a couple more slides or something about joining the advocacy team and next steps.
Put those up there. Thank you, Julie. Let me see, make sure everything is set. Sorry, my computer is not being kind today.
No, it seems to be, there must be something in the wiring. Oh, here we are.
All right, let me get to piece. Great. So exactly as like Julie kind of mentioned, so next steps, what we do with this information. I think the first thing that we really want to encourage people to do is just to get connected with us, whether that's through social media, joining our advocacy team. Again, if you go to restorejustice.org, there's a lot of links and things like that. There's a little button that says get involved. That'll kind of lead you to more opportunities and whatnot. I think the big part of this work that Julie's done a lot of work with, that our returning citizens network has been really working towards is just building community among people that are impacted. And I think it's a really great opportunity just to kind of collaborate and be together. And I think, you know, it's been mentioned a lot of times, it's like there are a lot of similar experiences, and just being able to kind of be in that network and be in that community together is really important. A couple of things as well. We have some upcoming virtual advocacy trainings. So again, sort of taking some of these feelings that we've been developing and putting them into action in terms of policy. I was reading the wrong one. Virtual loved ones self-advocacy training, which is going to be Monday, April 4th from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll again send up kind of a follow-up with these event registrations, but we'll kind of forward those as well.
I will jump in and say the reason it is not what we're doing is I'm waiting on the Illinois Department of Corrections, because I'm hoping that the transfer coordinator from Springfield will be on to talk to families about transfers in the DOC, and they have not confirmed, but that's why it doesn't actually say what it's going to be.
Great. Chris, do you have anything before we close out?
I don't think so. I think we got everything. Yeah, so you can email Julie Anderson at Restore Justice if you need anything else. Lynn asked a question about Zoom meetings. I think we did address that, but I don't think we have them. But Lynn, if you want to email Julie, or I can add my email in the chat too. You can reach out to us and I'll get back to you about maybe the possibility of having meetings like that in the future.
Lynn, I might say that we do have loved ones, family meetings, or friends and family of people who've come home or are currently incarcerated. And we do them once a month, and we alternate between Zoom and in person, because I have people around the state and in other states, quite frankly. So I could you could maybe join us. Okay.
Great. Well, like we said, we'll follow up kind of with an email just with some of the resources that we talked about. But thank you all so much for joining, and we hope to see you at our next one.
Okay, I see Tammy. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Deanna, she did such a wonderful job explaining what it's like to come home and dealing with the trauma before you actually come home, but then still coming home into a dysfunctional family. Me being incarcerated for 8.5 years, I kind of did the same thing. And so what I done for my son, he's done 12 years. He comes home, he's done 13 years. He comes home October. But what I've done, because I know how hard it was for me, what I've done is set a report up with him. Okay, like, let's talk about what bothers you. What are you going through? You know, he stayed with my father ever since he was 3 months old. And my father passed away. So now it's only just me as his mother. So with that being said, I didn't want to really get on here and really talk a whole lot. But with that being said, it's like what I've done is just try to set goals for each other. You know, this is about goal setting for him and for myself. What does this look like? What does this feel like? And so I try to just keep an open line of communication. That's what I do. I know it's gonna be hard because it was hard for with me and me did with them. So, but Deanna just kind of she moved something, and I liked it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Tamika. And I will say that you know, the people here understand each other, and that's always very comforting to me. So thanks everyone so much, and thanks for sharing your evening. And now you're free to have a water or whatever else.
Thank you. Did you say this is recorded somewhere that I could see this again?
Yes.
It is. Okay. Yes, I recorded it, and so we'll. I think part of tomorrow will be just figuring out how to get that dispersed to folks.
And that's
okay, thank you so much.
Lizzie there smiling. That's
you share the slides too.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a good